So before we get started, we need to learn the parts of our instrument. So let's just start at the top. This is the scroll. It's the one thing that doesn't really have a purpose. It's just there to look pretty. Hypothetically, they could just chop it off right here and your instrument would still work fine. Everything else though on your instrument has a purpose, so that's important to remember. This is called pegs. You have 4 of them, 1 for each string. They tune your strings. Now, do not touch them. As a beginner, trust me, do not touch them. That is the fastest way to get a broken string. Eventually, we'll teach you enough that you'll be able to touch them, and I'll show you later one thing that you could use to tune, but do not use your pegs unless you're trained to do so. The pegs are housed in the peg box, that makes sense. This little thing at the top here is where the string kind of starts to be clear of the peg box, and that's called the nut. So the nut is where the string kind of starts. This is called the fingerboard, not really a creative name because it's the board that you put your fingers on. This is the neck, that's where your hand goes. Here we have the F holes because they kind of look like Fs. And now this is a very important part. This is called the bridge. So the bridge is a very skinny piece of wood that is not glued down. It is not stuck there in any way. It is only standing up because of the pressure that the strings put on. Now this is really important to know because if you bonk the bridge or rest your instrument on it or something, it will fall or it will break. And that is not a good thing. If it breaks, that's obviously you would need to go to a store. If it falls, it's possible that I could put it back up, but I might not do it in exactly the right spot. If you look inside of your F holes, you will also see that there is something called a sound post inside of your instrument. The sound post is also not glued down. It is there standing up because of the pressure of the bridge, because of the pressure of the strings. So if your bridge falls, the sound post might fall, and that's definitely something that a violin maker or music store would have to fix. That's not something I can do. I tell you this because you need to be very, very careful of your bridge. Never ever set your instrument down, bridge down. It should always be on its back. If you're a cello or bass, it's actually very safe to put it on its side when you're setting it down. And you just need to be very aware of that. Don't lay it on your lap that way or anything. The bridge is very fragile and very important. The other tuning thing I mentioned is fine tuners. Now my violin only has 1, but yours will have 4. That is something that if you use those, it just minorly changes the pitch and you shouldn't be able to break a string with that. I'm going to teach you a little later how to tune your own instrument, but that's for the record. If your parent is a musician and they're feeling brave, they still can't touch the pegs. But if they want to touch the fine tuners, that's fine. Then we've got the tailpiece. For violins and violas, we have a chin rest right here. That's kind of a misnomer because when you put it up, it's more on your jaw, not on your chin. And then back here, there's the button that holds everything together. That holds the tailpiece there. Cellos and basses will have something called an end pin that comes out the bottom as well. Now let's just talk about the bow really quick. You may notice that I didn't mention everything on page 2. I just kind of skimmed over the important ones. The bow, here's the frog, and here's the tip. There's a whole story about why it's called the frog. I believe that the name for it sounds similar to the word for frog when you speak French. Something like that. That would be a good Google search. But nevertheless, we call it the frog, and that's kind of confusing. This is called the screw, the adjusting screw. Now that's very important. When you're storing your bow, it needs to be loose. So you would turn your bow, your screw to the left, and you want it to be kind of loose like that when it's being stored. That lets your bow kind of rest. Then you will tighten your bow when you're ready to play. And everybody always wants to wonder how tight to put it. So let me show you. Usually about a pinky width in between is right for violins and violas. And can you see how there's still slight curve right there. Now, I love my bow, but for teaching purposes, I'm going to show you what not to do. Some people want to make it parallel, the bow straight, the stick straight. That's not good. What's even worse is if you do it too tight, it starts to bend the other way. I can't even let it do that for a second. That's going to be really hard on your bow. The last thing I need you to know is that this is hair. This is horsehair on your bow. And you have to be very careful not to touch it. So on the violin, you have to be very careful not to touch your bridge. And actually for all the instruments, you got to be really careful of your bridge. But for the bow, try not to touch the hair. That's very important. Everybody has a little bit of oil in their skin. And when your fingers touch the hair, that makes the hair kind of slidey and smooth, and it makes it so that it can't make a sound. So it's very important that you don't touch the hair and you don't let anybody else. So those are all the parts of your instrument. If you want to know any other ones or if you forget, just go ahead and look at page 2. Let's review playing position for violins and violas. So what you're going to do is you're going to use your left hand and grip the shoulder of the violin. Then I like to do Statue of Liberty, and then you just gently rest it on your shoulder. And remember, you've got to put your jaw on the chin rest, not really your chin, okay? Don't try to do this. We go this way. Now remember, it's on your left side. Your left hand is holding Statue of Liberty. Bring it down. So we are going to learn 2 of the strings on your violin today. The first one that we learn is D. Now D is your second to lowest string. So if you look at the thickness, we want the second one up. And it should sound like that. Now when I'm plucking, that's called pizzicato, and I like to put my thumb here and then pluck with my pointer finger. The other one that we're going to learn is the other middle one. It's A. So A is the second to top, and then D is the second to lowest. And for a while, we're just going to focus on those 2 strings. So we're just going to learn 2 strings right now. First, we're going to learn D, which is your second to top string. Should sound like that. And then we're going to learn A, which is your highest string. So we're just going to use those 2 strings for a while. We have D and A. So try that out. Now let me teach you how to hold your cello. So you should be sitting to play the cello, and notice that I have my end pin out quite a bit. Now how you're going to determine how far your end pin needs to go is because when you're sitting with it at an angle, you want your knees to be right in this area. This is for where your bow goes, and you don't want your bow to hit your knee. So your knee should go right here. And so you should be able to put it straight out, and it's kind of vertical, and then you can just bring it in and it should hit right there. And then your head goes on the right side of your cello. So try that out. So this week we are learning the D string and the A string. So the D string is your second to highest string. Should sound like that. And then your top string, your smallest one, is A. So second to highest, D, and the highest, A. So those are the 2 strings we're going to use for a while. Let me teach you how to hold your bass. Bass can be played standing up or sitting in a stool. I'm going to show standing position right now. I think it's good to generally play standing when you're starting, just because it helps you have better posture, and then you can use the stool to rest when you need to. So put the bass straight up and down, and then you're going to lean it into your left hip area, kind of right here, right like that. Now you'll be able to tell if the end pin is the right height if your arm is about to where your bridge is. because that way when you bow, it'll be about a straight arm. So again, you're gonna have it straight upright, and then you're gonna kind of lean it into your left hip, and it'll sit right there. We're gonna learn 2 strings right now on the bass. We're gonna learn D, which is your second to highest, and we're gonna learn A, which is your second to lowest. So we're learning those middle 2 strings. We have D and A. And all of our music is gonna be on those 2 strings for a while. So try to just memorize which one's which. Let's talk about the bow grip. This is something that's very difficult for a lot of people. They really just want to hold their bow like this, and they don't see why that would be a problem. And at first you can make a sound with that, and that's fine, but I kind of equate it to when you learn to start writing with a pencil. When you first started to use a pencil, you probably did it like this. I've got 3 kids, they all started with that. And your teachers or your parents kept telling you to switch to this, but that didn't make sense because you could write letters this way, you could draw things this way, but now that you're older, you can see that if you hold it this way, you can go a lot faster, you can do less movement. If you were still writing like this, you'd have to move your whole arm, every letter, but here you can just use fingers. The bow grip is very much the same. People think, this is fine, it's working. But what I'm trying to prepare you for is to play really fast with minimal effort later. So keep that in mind. You will most likely get annoyed with the bow grip at the beginning, but just trust me, if you stick with it, it'll feel totally natural. The most important part of any bow grip is a bent thumb. Your bent thumb goes right here in between this black thing and your frog. Now that can feel kind of uncomfortable. I like to say it's like a texting thumb. If you've texted, it's like that, okay? And notice that my thumb is actually touching the side of the hair. That's breaking one of my rules, isn't it? But that's okay, just for the thumb. Then these 2 middle fingers here are gonna chomp. I like to say that they have buck teeth. So it's kind of like you have this fox, here's his ears, and he's got bottom teeth and buck teeth right there, and he chomps it, and then he's tired, so he lays over. Now for violins and violas, your pinky's gonna go on top right here. For cellos and bass, since you're gonna be this way, your pinky's gonna go over the edge like that. So, bent thumb, right in there, chomp, lean over. So try that out at home. To begin with, we're gonna start with one note, which is called the quarter note. Some people might also know this as a ta. Now the quarter note is filled in and it has a line. The line can either be going up or down, and it's still a quarter note. The quarter note gets 1 beat. So all you need to know about that for now is that it's a steady beat. It's kind of like a clock. So if you have a bunch of quarter notes, you can't be like, you got to be steady. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. Now its opposite is the quarter rest. So this means that you don't make sound for 1 beat. So for example, if we had quarter note for 3 and then a rest, it'd be 1, 2, 3, rest. So that would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. So that rhythm is used on pages 4 and 5 of our book. So we learned how to play D and A, and now we're using those in different combinations with the quarter note and the quarter rest. So let's play open D. It's just as easy as it sounds, like this. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, rest. And then open A is the same thing, but on A. So I would like you to try to just play through all of this music on pages 4 and 5. It will just use D and A, and it will only use quarter notes and quarter rests. but it gets more and more complicated. For example, if you look at number 8, named Count Carefully, it's going to go D, D, rest, rest, A, rest, rest, D, rest, A, rest, D, A, D, rest. So even though it only has a couple of things, it can get kind of complicated. So try to learn all of that music and we'll review that next time. Hi violins, let me just explain to you how these finger tapes work. So we are going to be working on the D string, which remember is the second to lowest string. I'm going to show it to you this direction and then I'll show it to you in playing position, but I think this will help show how it works. So left hand is doing stuff. Right hand can just hold the instrument for now. So left hand puts its thumb next to that red tape. Notice the thumb does not push on the strings. It's just next to there. And that's why I like that these tapes are a little long, because you can just know that you got to put your thumb next to that tape. Now, your pointer finger is your first finger. It pushes down on that first tape on the D string. So notice this is D, and then when I push it down, that shortens the string and makes a higher pitch, which is E. Do you hear that difference? D and then E. Make sense? Now, as you might guess, your next finger, your middle finger, is your second finger, and it goes on your next tape. This is called F sharp, which I know is weird. Why wouldn't we just do F? You'll learn all that later. Just trust me, it's F sharp. F sharp is that second finger. So we have D, E, F sharp. And then your ring finger is the last finger we're going to use for now. We're not going to use the pinky for a little bit. Your ring finger goes on the last one, and that's G. And you're probably like, Miss Badal, I already have a G. Your lowest string is a G. But we are learning this G, this F sharp, and this E, because you have another E. But do you hear how they kind of sound the same? That's because they're the same note. And then open D. So what we're doing is we're trying to figure out what these notes sound like just on the D string. So let me show you now in playing position. So we have, notice my right hand is doing the plucking, and you put your thumb on the fingerboard and use the side of your finger. A lot of people were trying to use their fingernail, and that doesn't make a good sound. It sounds a lot better if you use the side of your finger. So thumb next to the first finger tape. First finger on the first tape on the E, on the D string. Ugh. That makes E. See that? D, E, and I have to push down pretty hard. If you don't push down hard enough, it sounds like that, okay? There's E. Second finger is F sharp. Third finger is G. And keep in mind that all these are on the D string. If you put these fingers down on the other strings, it makes different notes, but we're gonna just focus on the D string. So if you still have some questions, feel free to have your parents email me. You can send me a video, because I wanna make sure that everybody understands. Hi violas, so let me kind of explain how the finger tapes work and how to play these notes on your viola. So I'm gonna show you in this direction first, so you can see a little better, and then I'll do it in playing position. So we're using your left hand. Your right hand is doing the plucking, okay? So we are working on the D string, which remember is your second to highest. Sounds like that, okay? So no fingers down, it's D. What you do is that your left thumb goes on the side. It does not go on a string. It goes on the side, but that's why I like that these tapes are a little long. You can put your thumb right next to there. Then your first finger is your pointer finger. It's going to push down on that D string where that first tape is. So here's D, and then when we put our finger down, it makes a higher pitch, which is E, and that's because we made the string shorter because we're pushing it down. If you don't push it down all the way, it kind of makes no sound. It makes this weird sound. So you really got to push it down all the way, like that. Your next finger is your middle finger. It's your second finger. It goes right here. That's F sharp. And your third finger is your ring finger. That makes G. And I know you already have a G. That's open G, but this is the G on the D string. And hear how they kind of sound the same? That's because they're the same note. We're not using your pinky for a while, so your pinky can just chill, okay? So let me show you in playing position. So here I am again, my left hand, my thumb is next to the neck, but not pushing down any strings. I'm putting my fingers down on my D string, so I'm playing D. Then my first finger is E. Second finger is F sharp. Third finger is G. So hopefully that helped to clear it up. We'll go through it some more on Monday, but go ahead and try out those notes. Hi cellists, so let me just kind of explain how these finger tapes work. We are going to be using our left hand on the strings. Your right hand is for plucking, okay? So first step is your thumb goes in between the first and second tapes on the back, just somewhere back here, okay? Your first finger is your pointer finger, and it goes on the first tape. So we're going to be playing on the D string, so you're going to put it down on the D string, and you got to kind of push hard for cello. And when we do that, we raise the pitch. So this is what the D sounds like. But when we push down, that makes the string shorter, which makes a higher note, which is E, okay? So D, E, okay? Now, cello is a little weird because we're gonna skip your second finger. We're gonna skip your middle finger and go straight to your third finger, which is your ring finger. Your third finger goes here. And when I put down third finger, I just put down second finger too. It's easier, especially with the cello. So we have D, first finger is E, third finger is F sharp. I know it's weird that we don't do F. It'll all make sense later. And then your pinky is your fourth finger and it does G. And you're like, Miss Badal, I already know a G. I open G, but we're learning a different G. And do you hear how they kind of sound the same? That's because they're the same note. So just to review, thumb somewhere in between first and second tape. First finger, it's got to really push down on D. If you don't push down all the way, it sounds like that, okay? So you really got to push down. F sharp, third finger. G is fourth. So if you still have some questions, feel free to have your parents email me. They can even send me a video of you playing so that I can kind of see where the issue might be. And then we can work on it on Monday. So good luck practicing. Hey basses, let me explain how to do these new notes on your bass. So like I told you a little bit before class, this is a little different for you than everybody else. We are going to work on your D string, which remember is the second to highest, but your top one is G. And everybody else has to put down a bunch of fingers for G, but for you, it's just an open string, okay? So that's your G. Now, as for the other ones, your thumb goes on the back of your bass, somewhere in between the first and second tapes, okay? Then we're talking about your left hand here. So your thumb goes back there. Your pointer finger goes on this first tape. So when you're on the D string, you put down your first finger. It makes a higher pitch because we made the string shorter by pushing it down. Notice if you don't push it down all the way, it kind of has this almost nothing sound. You have to really push it, especially for bass, okay? Now, your second tape is done with your pinky because see how big that gap is? It has to. So you have D is no fingers down. First finger down is E, and then your pinky does F sharp. And then, like I said, everybody else does G, and you have open G. Okay, so that's how those work. Make sure you're pushing down really hard for bass. Kind of think of pulling back this way, and your fingers will get used to it. At first they might be a little sore, so don't do it for too long, but your skin on your fingers will actually get tougher as you play bass more. So That's how those notes go. So good luck and try it out.